Beyonce's Act III album isn't rock, it's gospel. Or maybe opera. It could even be R&B or a Destiny's Child reunion, especially how they performed at the last Cowboy Carter show. So many theories are going around about Beyonce's Act III, but I'm here to say I think it's rock, and let me tell you why. So before any of the acts even came out, it was rumored that Beyonce is doing a 3-act project, and it was also rumored what all 3 acts would be, and so far, it has all been right, so it's not far-fetched to think that rock will eventually come true as well. Now, some clues that we've seen that might suggest that Act III is rock, starting off lightly. People think a part of the Cowboy Carter stage is shaped like a guitar to signify rock. Also, she's in tune with Jimi Hendrix enough to do his rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner at the Cowboy Carter tour, which probably shows that she's been researching black rock artists. This next one I talked about in my last video. People think Beyonce's last Levi's jeans ad gave clues about Act III being rock. They pointed out how she arrived on a horse and left on a motorcycle, and that's solid enough to convince some. But if we're taking it seriously, Beyonce did pose on a motorcycle back in 2022 for Vogue, wearing a black lipstick and a fully black leather outfit. Even the hairstyle was giving rock. And this picture didn't fit Renaissance vibes nor Cowboy Carter, so it must have been alluding to rock from the jump. Now, there are different types of rock and roll music. This says rock and roll encompasses a wide range of styles, evolving from its roots in blues, country, and gospel music. Key early forms include rockabilly, which blends rock and roll with country, and blues rock, which incorporates blues elements into rock music. Later subgenres like hard rock, glam rock, and punk rock emerged, each with distinct characteristics. So we don't really know which type of rock Beyonce would do, but over the years, she has done some covers like Kings of Leon, Sex on Fire, Prince, The Beautiful Ones, The Verve, Bittersweet Symphony, Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Alanis Morissette, You Ought to Know. She even said at Glastonbury that she's always wanted to be a rock star.
I always wanted to be a rock star, and tonight we are all rock stars.
So rock has been up her alley for quite some time. And based on the artist she has referenced more recently, we can kind of assume what direction she might go in. Example, Tina Turner continues to be a big influence on Beyonce. She wore a red dress similar to the one Tina wore at her 50th anniversary tour in 2008. She also wore a gold dress similar to the one Tina wore at her What's Love tour in 1993. And Beyonce even wore a Tina Turner shirt and made sure to point at it, and the message was clear. Also, during a Cowboy Carter interlude, she dressed up as Tina Turner in 1971, and during that time, Tina was covering the Beatles' song Come Together. I keep wondering if Beyonce will cover that song. Also, Tina is the queen of rock and roll, so who better to channel than her? Beyonce's mother mentioned how Beyonce started stooping down to think ever since Tina Turner did it while they were rehearsing for the 2008 Grammys. Like Tina just squatted on down in her heels so casually, and I'm mentioning that to show how much Beyonce truly looks up to Tina Turner. There's also an interview of Tina Turner talking about how people and radio stations wanted to box her into R&B.
I've been rock and roll all my life. I have stood with the rock and roll guys, and still they say, the radio programmers said, no, we cannot program her. She's R&B.
Because she's black.
Because I'm black. You have to go crossover R&B before you can make rock and roll. But I reversed it on them. My audience, the people, proclaimed me rock and roll, and so it was just forced. So it didn't matter what the radio stations were saying or were playing.
I saw the clip and said that's the same thing they want to do with Beyonce now, box her into a genre. Now others saw that same clip and are saying it might be included somewhere in Act III, which would be very fitting since this all goes back to Beyonce letting people know black people have the right to do whatever genre they please. At the Cowboy Carter tour, Beyonce thanked people who opened the doors for her, and now she's carrying that torch by opening doors for others. She made sure to showcase the rock singer Rosetta Tharpe. Rosetta was a queer black woman from Arkansas who shredded on electric guitar, belted praises both to God and secular pleasures, and she broke the color line by touring with white singers. She's gospel's first superstar. Rosetta even inspired acts like Elvis Presley. The same backup singers she had eventually worked with Elvis too, and they've talked about how Elvis was a huge Rosetta fan. He loved her voice and loved the way she played the guitar even more. Rosetta also inspired Chuck Berry, Bob Dylan, etc. In that same tour interlude, Beyonce also dressed up as Little Richard, who referred to himself as the king and queen of rock and roll. He inspired Prince, Michael Jackson, James Brown, and even Jimi Hendrix, who played in his band at one point. Beyonce also dressed up as Betty Davis for Halloween. Betty was a funk, soul, and R&B singer. She was known to be unapologetically sexual. She walked so people like Madonna could run. Beyonce also used her song This Is It in an IG post. That same year, Beyonce also dressed up as Prince for Halloween, also Apollonia and Vanity. The black hair is giving, and I really do hope we see more of it for Act 3. She captioned the pics Purple Nasty. She might be coming with that bold, sexy energy for Act 3. Who knows? Months before that, Beyonce also wore a Prince and the Revolution shirt, so all roads seem to lead to rock. Now I want to talk about the order of the acts for a little, so we can tie it all in. So we know Act 1 is Renaissance, Act 2 is Cowboy Carter, and Act 3 may be rock, but we also know that this wasn't the original order. Act 1 was supposed to be the country album, Cowboy Carter. Beyonce said, "This album took over 5 years. It's been really great to have the time and the grace to be able to take my time with it. I was initially going to put Cowboy Carter out first, but with the pandemic, there was too much heaviness in the world. We wanted to dance. We deserved to dance, but I had to trust God's timing." And we can see that Act 1 was really supposed to be country because Beyonce was warming us up for it. In 2021, she launched Ivy Park Rodeo, which included cow prints, cowboy hats, denim outfits, etc. We got photo shoots with Hey, and during this time, she talked about black cowboys and the soul circuit and all that good stuff. But due to COVID plus the Black Lives Matter uprising, we ended up getting Renaissance to make us feel good. Now, I've been seeing people assume that Renaissance was supposed to be Act 2, and I'm like, who said that?
Who said that? Who said that? Who said that? Who has been saying that?
I think Act 3 was supposed to be Act 2, and Renaissance would have been Act 3. So Act 1 country, Act 2 potentially rock, and Act 3 Renaissance. Let me tell you why. Think about how rock and country would explore heavier themes, but Renaissance isn't like that. There are no sad songs on Renaissance. Acts 1 and 2, she would have talked about the struggles, hardships, and oppression, and now it's time to dance with Act 3 Renaissance. Like she was gonna finish off on a lighter, freer, fun note with a dance album just to round everything out. Plus, the visual themes of Renaissance have a lot to do with outer space, so I feel like she's using that to give us the vision of a new world where everyone can just be themselves. She said her intention with Renaissance was to create a safe place without judgment, free of perfectionism and overthinking. Renaissance is literally a rebirth for a fresh start, and what better way to end the trilogy than that? And let's take a step back to the people mentioned earlier, Rosetta Tharpe and Betty Davis, who Beyonce sang about on the Break My Soul remix. In the Cowboy Carter art book, Beyonce even posted with the same type of guitar that Rosetta used. Her mentioning these women in the remix, I see this as her circling back to who she would have already given a tribute to in both Act 1 and Act 2 rock. She mentioned these women with other artists of the past, such as Bessie Smith, who was the queen of blues, and she mixed in current artists as well to show appreciation and just to round everyone up in a feel-good song. Now let's get back to the clues of why I think rock is the next act. Someone else Beyonce dressed up as during the Cowboy Carter tour interludes was Elvis Presley, and I talked about this in my Cowboy Carter tour deep dive video. Elvis is seen as the king of rock and roll, but he did take a lot from black artists. Big Mama Thornton's Hound Dog, Nina Mae McKinney's Moves. I already told y'all how he felt about Rosetta, and Elvis's whole singing style seems like a rip-off from Roy Hamilton. In the Smoke Hour interlude on Cowboy Carter, we hear snippets of Rosetta Tharpe's song Down by the Riverside and also Roy Hamilton's Don't Let Go. Calling out Elvis is right up Beyonce's alley. We see his picture in the tour interludes after the word propaganda. In the 2006 movie Dreamgirls, we see a scene where a white group stole the song Cadillac Car from the Dreamettes, and Curtis asked Cece who made the song Hound Dog, and he didn't know, he thought it was Elvis. So Curtis let them know that that's wrong, basically showing that white artists have always taken music from black artists. And I mention that because it shows that those truths have been on Beyonce's radar for a while. Fast forward to Cadillac Records in 2008, where Beyonce played Etta James, Mos Def played Chuck Berry, and Beyonce has a Chuck Berry song, Oh Louisiana, on her album. Jeffrey Wright played Muddy Waters. Even back then, Beyonce wasn't afraid to call out the Elvis propaganda.
When, you think of the king of rock and roll, it's not Elvis. it's Muddy Waters. Once I read this script, it was so amazing and something that I knew I had to be a part of. It's a part of my history, especially with me being a musician and an R&B singer. This is the story of R&B. This is the story of rock and roll, and I wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for Cadillac Records. When everyone leaves the theater, I hope they have a better understanding of the history of music. I'm just honored to bring this story to my generation.
So the mentality was there from a long time ago. It only took the 2016 CMAs and racist backlash for her to finally materialize a project to highlight black artists and how they've been in every genre doing their thing, and how they should feel free to explore whatever genre they please. A lot has been stolen, but in the words of Beyonce, history can't be erased.